Good afternoon again, and welcome to the Mayor's Brief. And I'm not the mayor, as I say pretty frequently, but I'm Councilmember TJ Walker, and so glad to have Councilman Daughtridge with us today. Glad for you to be here.
All right. Thanks, TJ. I'm glad to be with you, Councilman.
Yes, sir. So, in the mayor's absence, we will try to do our best to continue this mayor's brief as best we can. Our meeting was June 26, 2023 at 4 p.m., and we had full council and also almost full chambers for a 4 o'clock meeting, but
Right.
definitely great representation from the community and constituents there. We had, I believe, a few public comments that were not necessarily addressing the budget. A few were addressing the budget
Right.
in public comment. But then we have some comments that weren't necessary. But nonetheless, we had a few public comments.
Right.
I don't know if anything jumped out to you or not during public comment.
No, I think it was standard. There were again a few towards the budget and specifically some pay and classification study. So, but I think we could probably go through the consent agenda when you're ready.
That sounds good. Well, our first consent agenda item A, was consideration and recommendation for approval of award of duty of badge and sidearm to Lieutenant Tim Hathaway for 30 years of dedicated service.
Yeah. Well, I know Lieutenant Hathaway, and he's a good person and
Yeah.
highly missed. I go to church with Lieutenant Hathaway, and good person. He has a great wife, and he'll be missed. But I think he indicated he's still willing to come on part time.
That's it.
Which is awesome.
That's it. And we have room. And thank you, Lieutenant Hathaway, for your 30 years of service and sacrifice and commitment, not only to the city, but to your duty as a law enforcement officer. And so, it's a beautiful thing to be able to serve and worship and just be in community with constituents. As a councilman, that's been one of my highlights.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, the difference between, I think, local representation and then going to the state level and certainly at the national level. I mean, again, we live and worship and go to the grocery store and work with the folks that we represent. So it's a unique opportunity because we get to hear from folks directly. So
it keeps you on your P's and Q's.
Most of the time.
Yes, sir. Item B was temporary street closing request from the Happy Hill neighborhood. They will be having their annual Happy Hill Day event, which will be this Saturday, upcoming Saturday, I believe. And that is normally a great time in the community. And I enjoy it and look forward to it. It's from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. And it will be at the B. Holman Park. And it will be a great time there on Star Street.
Well, good.
Yes, sir. Item C was a consideration of approval of urgent repair program, post-approval document, and then also there was a resolution amending or adopting the following admin policies for our urgent repair grant and the procurement and disbursement policy. And it was recommended from the manager, to adopt that resolution and to approve the urgent repair program, post-approval documentation, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute the required documentation on behalf of the city. So there was some admin policies added into that resolution for us to approve in order to make sure that as we enter into this new fiscal year, that our urgent repair grant is suitable and packaged the way it needs to be, so that individuals will know how to apply and where to apply and when to apply, but make that process smooth for them to apply for the urgent repair.
Right. And if I recall correctly, it also aligns us with the state regulations that we have to follow in addition and any federal regulations. So, again, that's just an administrative type thing and also keeps everybody on the same page, which is I appreciate and thankful that we're doing this.
Definitely. And thank you to our staff and to I think Ms. McGee, Cornelia McGee, who is the director of that department. It is very difficult dealing with the HUD funding and then trying to still administer and meet the need of our constituents. But she's doing a great job of it. And she's been doing well ever since she's been promoted to that and elevated into that position. Item D was a consideration of pre-application documents for fiscal year 2025 Community Transportation Program grant. which was incurred by the Tar River Transit,
Right.
which we really, I don't see us utilizing Tar River Transit as much as we used to. I know we were trying to sort of look at different type of transportation mechanisms and techniques, but it's good to see that this item was here on the agenda for our community transportation program grant. And if I'm not mistaken, it will allow residents and constituents to be able to utilize it from a grant funding perspective for those that may not be able to sort of subsidize that funding for different community trips into transit.
Right. And a lot of our Tar River Transit monies that we don't, the city doesn't fully pay for that entire expense. We get a lot of grants for that, and we have to do some matching, but we also, it's not just for the city of Rocky Mount, it's for the surrounding area as well. So it's not just a city service. So
Tar River.
So that's an administrative piece, but things that have to be done. And then, we're going to go next into our insurance for property and casualty insurance. And again, that's just a renewal. And that's actually a big figure insurance. And that's something that we have to have. $1.8 million, almost $1.9 million. So that's and we changed companies, I believe, last year, at least brokers. And so, again, we just had to renew that. And I think Mike Vaughn with the C Rocky Mount overlooks that. He does a good job.
Definitely so. And we're grateful for Mike Bond and his position, and looking forward to the continued work there, and for the great work that staff does at Tar River Transit. The next agenda item was item F, consideration of adoption of the following fiscal year 2022-2023 ordinances. And there were some budget ordinance amendments. There were 5 of them. And I don't know if you want to go through each one or but there were 5 different items, and we had to make sure that we adopted those into our agenda and move forward with that. Following that, some project ordinance amendments, Transit View, and there were 3 different projects there, and the Urban Transit Operating Cares Act. Item 7 was appropriating funds to Economic Development Fund as awarded from the North Carolina Department of Commerce Building Reuse Grant Program for Project Blues.
Right.
$300,000.
Right. And I was able, actually, I served on the Department of Commerce Rural Infrastructure Authority. And actually, my last meeting was a couple of weeks ago. We have term limits.
Yeah. Wow.
And so I no longer own that, but I did recuse myself on voting on this one. So I was able to vote with the city on this. So Commerce does a great job and helps out all 100 counties. And it's certainly geared towards promoting jobs within North Carolina, because all the grants are job related, and it's all based on the number of jobs created. So if I believe since 2013, that's been almost $300 and maybe $50 million in grants issued throughout the entire state of North Carolina that provided, I think, or created, not we the Commerce, but created over 35,000 jobs within the state of North Carolina. So it's impactful.
Wow. Most definitely. And it's good to know that we have a piece of the pie here in the city.
And we can keep on going.
Yes, sir. And thank you for your service on that board as well. Item 8 was a community development grant program, community development block grant of $30,000 and home investment partnership of $142,000, which are both community development grant programs that we have in the city. And I think we have a variety. One thing that I know our staff's working on now is really trying to consolidate our grant program and figure out, what funding do we really have, what programs do we have, and really try to figure out how we can get a bang for our buck in that community development department with Ms. McGee.
Right. Again, I'm certainly in favor of consolidation. So then we also, 9 was a downtown improvement. Rural transformation grant by Department of Commerce for $800,000. So we certainly can use that money and put it to good use.
That's it, man. I'm telling you, we're open for all funding, all funding from all sources, and especially those grants that aren't matching and grants we don't have to pay back. We just have to follow guidelines.
Right.
It's always helpful. Item G was consideration of a couple different ordinances and budget amendments. And I'm not sure if you wanted to touch on any of those.
No, a lot of this was just administrative, getting things straight, and that's why it was included in the consent agenda. And then we had, I guess, the last item on the consent agenda was purchase of a generation storage area network. That's for IT,
Mm-hmm.
and that was $124,000, which is a lot of money. But it, technology is where a lot of things happen, efficiencies happen, and we have to invest in it. Also, we have to invest in it because we've got to maintain the safety of our data and of the citizens' data. So it's certainly something that's needed, and
Definitely.
we certainly want to keep on investing in our infrastructure of technology.
We got to have it. And like you said, consent agenda really is where we compile and consolidate a lot of our items that aren't controversial or don't need a lot of conversation or aren't as detailed. And we have them there so we can vote all at once and
Right.
just take one vote, on all items.
And there are occasions that each one of us has an opportunity to bring things out of the consent agenda if we think it needs to be, even if it needs to be, bringing things to light, because
Yeah.
I'm in favor of a consent agenda, but sometimes I think we just need more transparency and at least have a discussion on it separately, so people are aware of what goes on. But I think the biggest and longest part of our night was around this next item, and I'll let you begin with that.
Yeah, item 9. So item 9 was our budget ordinance and amendment. Really talked about approving the budget for this fiscal year, and it really I think when I look back over it, I think it was very, very healthy conversation, debate. Councilman Knight wanted us to have a 15% increase, I believe, for sanitation workers and a 6%. I don't know if it was a COLA or a 6% just increase across the board for all employees. And although that could have been a move that came out to be a successful move. However, not really knowing the impact of what that looked like in its totality of having that increase, and then not really seeing, which the next item was item 10, how the comp study and classification study really would play out for all employees. I didn't feel that was a good idea. We needed to approve the budget as is.
Right.
Our staff have been working on it diligently. I've had and really all of council have had multiple conversations with our manager, and everyone was at pretty much at a satisfactory place of saying, hey, listen, we've seen the budget, we've gone through all of our budget work sessions, we've asked questions that need to be asked, we're ready to approve the budget as is. Right. And so I believe that the conversation, although it was sort of everyone pitched in and it was sort of back and forth, that was the bulk of that agenda item. It sort of merged 9 and 10 together. Although we voted on them separately, the conversation pertained the two. Because in just my thought, I didn't think, to support why we need to pass, I thought item 10 needed to also be addressed along with item 9. And so that was just where I came from that night. It was a little bit more vocal than probably normal. But at sometimes, I get that way because I feel, sometimes you have to speak up and be able to have some substantial evidence about what it is that you're believing in and standing for.
Yeah. Well, from my perspective, and I'll just talk about 9, the concern I had with the addition from Councilman Knight was more of we had committee of the whole discussions regarding the budget. And from my perspective, if we were going to bring that up, it should have been discussed during the committee of the whole. I felt it was kind of last minute because we have statutorily by the state of North Carolina, we have to pass a balanced budget. We have no option. It has to be done by the end of this month because our fiscal year begins July 1 of 23. So we didn't, and we also didn't know the full impact, because if we had done that, what we didn't talk about was, okay, if you add to the budget and if it impacts it by a couple $1 million, what are we going to take out of the budget?
Yeah.
Because you got to have a balanced budget. So the other part of the discussion that was not discussed is what what were people or what we were willing to take out of the budget.
Mm-hmm.
And, there's a lot of things that are important in the budget. And that would have been another extensive conversation of what would have been taken out. So, I think we can still have that discussion. But the other piece that item 9 was really talking about the solid waste transfer tipping fee, which was an increase of 2.5%. I think it's going up to $77 a ton, but don't quote me on that.
Mm-hmm.
And we had water and sewer retail rate. The increases were 8.5%. I think the average impact on a citizen is going to be about $3.50. But that was something we had to do. We had a study that was completed and it was presented during the committee of the whole. We've got to pay for our infrastructure. We've got to keep our water and sewer infrastructure up. So we have an obligation to charge, the cost of that. And we don't want to be like other communities you always hear about up north where they've had issues with water and sewer. We don't have that issue. But what we did have is previously we were selling water and sewer below market or below what it cost us.
Yeah.
And so we were doing it at expense, and all we're doing is pretty much breaking even on that. So, but the addition, and you're correct, and I agree with you, item 10, which is the next item, which is talking about the classification compensation plan.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to say we've from my perspective, we've had many compensation plans that were studies we've had but never been implemented, we've never seen. And we haven't seen fully this one, but I will say, City Manager Keith Rogers, I have full faith in the city manager.
Yeah.
I think it was a great hire for the city of Rocky Mount. I think he's doing a wonderful job along with his staff. He's come in here middle of budget and he's trying to get things straight. And he has a lot of holes to fill. And I'm in full support of the city manager. And I think and he's correct. I think we needed to implement this and see how it impacts the city and our staff. And I think I know I speak for me, and I would assume the entire city council and the mayor, we value every staff member at the city of Rocky Mount and value everything that they do, because otherwise we couldn't perform what we do, the services that we do perform for the citizens of Rocky Mount without our staff members.
Yeah.
But I think we need to give City Manager Rogers an opportunity to implement this plan. And I think it's going to work out for everyone. And I think by the time this airs soon after, most of the staff members will see how this does impact them. And I think, there will probably, heck, I don't think any of us get paid what we'd like to get paid.
No.
But I think it's certainly going to bring us where we should have done this many years ago.
Yeah.
I think it will bring us and our staff where we need to be. And I think also it'll be interesting where we are, but I think we're going to be very competitive and not exceeding our neighbors and other municipalities of having a pretty positive, pay for our folks. And then, we are adding 2 positions in HR, and that is intended. So when we go through reviews, to work with the staff members who go through and review the subordinates to make sure that we're doing it fairly, and also giving an opportunity for people for advancement. So I fully applaud City Manager Rogers for what he's doing and the staff. So I'm sorry to roll on like that.
Oh no, it's the mayor's brie. And so all of our comments may not be brief, but we're debriefing, and you have the time and the floor to do that. But yeah, you're right. Item 10, it's a time for our city to really allow our manager to be the manager and to do what the manager needs to do, and fully understand that still as a council we have the direction and that oversight of our management. But item 10 needed to take place, so the structure was in place. And as Keith always says, if there's something that needs to be amended or changed after the fact, he has the bandwidth as a manager and the staff to be able to do that. And so we're going to be fine. I think everything will be, A-okay once we come out of this process. I believe July 8th, everybody will be able to know exactly what their new salaries are. and they'll probably see the effects of that by July. July 26th, I believe so. And so by the end of July, everyone will be seeing, new pay. So,
Right.
I'm excited about it. Our council pay stays the same, and that's fine. There's no issue at all. And I don't think we ever sort of bicker about that or complain about it. But we're doing what we need to do for the city and for our staff, for our employees. And at the end of the day, I believe it will pay off, and they will be somewhat satisfied with the changes.
Right. And there is a process that staff goes through, but I think it's also a good thing to mention here. I personally feel we're on the city council, and we have three folks that report to us, and that is the city manager, the city clerk, and the city attorney. And I think we need to do as much as we can. Not that we can't talk or shouldn't talk to staff, but I think there's a chain of command, and we don't have any part of the direct management of staff. And I think that's important for us to remember, and because the city manager is the one that is the manager of staff, and that's why he's hired. And there was some mention during the city council meeting about the city manager receiving a raise. The city manager just came on board within the past 6 months, and Keith has not received any additional pay from what was announced back then.
Oh no. Yeah, so, and it wasn't 75,000. It was, I think Rochelle may have left at 205. Keith started about 225. So
right.
$25,000, more than the last manager, but it was also, 2 years later.
Right.
And so as time has changed, that was the actual, and that wasn't, I believe that's what we offered. I don't even think that was what was requested from him. He accepted what we offered.
Correct.
And so, but he's doing a fantastic job, and he will continue to do so as we continue to provide that support for him. Item 11 was consideration of adoption of the following fiscal year 2023-24 ordinances. Again, some more ordinances as you see them listed there. A few different projects, a couple of grant projects. Item 12 was fiscal year 2023-24 as a resolution to appropriate fundings for OIC's Youth Connect and construction trade courses. And that is great programming throughout the city. We see a lot of our young people, young men and women that work during the summer that benefit from these jobs, and they do a great job throughout the city. And I know there's a lot of controversy about it because it was OIC, but Councilman Blackwell and Councilman Knight, I believe, recused themselves from the vote, which we have to do now from Senate Bill 473, I believe is the correct bill. But this program is a great program, and our youth all across the city can benefit from that. Item 11 was in my ward. It was on Beale Street, and so it was a bid that was awarded to AU Estates Services, a company looking to provide some services there on Beale Street, and we're excited about it. And that really, oh no, I thought we were done, but we have a couple more. You want to talk about 14?
14 was the consideration of quit claim deed of 0.023 acre between the Ruby Gray Airs and the Municipal Stadium to the Nash Board of Education. And where this comes from is, and I think there was a good explanation by the attorney, back in the 70s or maybe even the 60s, I'm not sure exact, but early on,
yeah,
we were given the school where we have the judicial system, and in exchange we gave the school system the municipal stadium where the Griffons used to play baseball and football, and then the school system has decided to sell that, but I think the city had first right of refusal. The city, which never came in front of. I was not aware of it. I became aware of it when it was printed in the newspaper, but the city did not bid on that. Anyway, it's been back and forth on some bids. Finally, it was sold, and during the transaction, they noticed that there was a small piece of property that had not been deeded over many, many years ago. It was just an administrative overlook, and the quitclaim deed was just going to clean it up. In fact, I have experience with the property I own now, where that happened, where I purchased the property, but what I thought I purchased, it was two parts, and one of them wasn't included. And finally, when we went to refinance, it was discovered. So that was just a cleanup. But there was controversy about that because there's a group out there that said that they were not given an opportunity and they actually won the bid. But from my perspective, and even from, I think, the city attorney, essentially that's between that group and school board. It's not between the city of Rocky Mount or in that group. And they can argue it there and they can argue it in the court system. And everybody has an opportunity to do that. It's not between the city and that group. It's really between the school system and that group. And we would have to clean this up regardless of who gets it.
Yeah. Our sole duty was to make sure we just got rid of the piece of property that we needed to get rid of and make sure it was in the deed of the whole municipal parcel. And that concluded our agenda for the night. And then we went into closed session for economic development conversation and also personnel, I believe. And those were the two matters that we had for closed session. Again, we're moving right along, getting ready for July. We've got 4th of July celebration. I think the city's is on the 3rd. That will be at the stadium again this year from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. Also, this Friday, I believe, is the first Friday night lights from a Parks and Rec department in Holly Street Park. I believe that's from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m., if I'm not mistaken. But every Friday, you can find Parks and Rec in one of our parks for summer night lights. And so be on the lookout when they're in your ward. And it'll be a great time, great family atmosphere and environment. But to everyone, have a great holiday. Enjoy. Be safe.